Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special edition of Getting Hammered. We are coming to you on Election Day as you're listening, the culmination of all the junk talking we've been doing for so long. Joining me today for this special edition is my co-host, Vic Mattis of the Washington Free Beacon. We are your morning show for any hour. And honestly, on Election Day, there's not a ton to talk about because people are going out and doing the thing that is the election. So while you're all waiting for the results from that, we're here to give you this sweet content of us talking through the last information we have. How's it going, Vic?
Hello, Mary Katharine. I am hanging in there just like you. I do just want to quickly thank you for the other day on X commemorating the anniversary of the quote, "I'm so excited" episode of Saved by the Bell. I'm not sure if you saw my reply.
I didn't see it. Oh, I missed it.
Well, all I had to say was it's a very intense clip, as you know, because of
Indeed.
the caffeine. Just if people are wondering what we're talking about and Saved by the Bell.
I hope no one in our audience
In
is
our
wondering
audience,
what
they
we're
should know
talking about.
About Jesse Spano being addicted to caffeine pills, which is the 90s version of Michael J. Fox in Family Ties being addicted to speed in the 80s. So, and then Zach, of course, has to, shake her up and say it's going to be okay. And she is out of control. And all I said was I replied and said, now you all know what it's like for me right before we record every episode of Getting Hammered.
That's true.
I got to shake her up like that and say, Mary Katharine, get a hold of yourself.
I've taken too much caffeine.
Too much caffeine pills.
So excited. Yes, the other day did mark the anniversary of that special after school special version.
It
of
was.
Saved by the Bell.
Were you? I think of it as a golden age for NBC. Did you watch a lot of those shows at the time?
Oh yeah, I think
okay.
I think my age cohort is probably peak Saved by the Bell.
Saved by the Bell,
like
right.
That was the afternoon staple for us. And I think all of those actors are about my age, maybe 5 years older. So that makes sense. I was idolizing them as a little bit older than I was.
I remember I had already started at the Standard because I'm a little bit older than you, as you know. But on Saturday mornings, I turn on the TV, I'm still just, a little groggy from the late night close. What's going on? And something easy to watch would be on NBC. And okay, do you remember there were two other shows that I remember from that time besides Saved by the Bell? One of them was called California Dreaming. Yeah.
Exactly.
A band? They were a band? Is that it? They're just a story about them being a band?
Yeah, I think
so.
So.
Yeah, great. And then Hang Time.
Hey, I don't remember
with
Hang
Danielle
Time.
Deutsch. Yeah, it was good. Okay, well, good. But in any event, were you a fan of the Saved by the Bell Hawaii episode?
No, my favorite Saved by the Bell era was Was it Mr. Lugosi's Beach Club?
Oh, what happens? I don't know. You have to tell me.
That was the era where they went to the beach club for the summer and Leah Remini played the love interest for Zach. And she was a real straight shooter, tough Jersey Shore gal type.
My kind of girl. Okay, yeah.
Stacey Carosi. It was Mr. Carosi's, Beach Club.
Club.
That was my favorite era of Saved by the Bell.
When it was a very popular show, obviously overseas as well, because it gave at the time in the 90s, a little look about what life is like in the United States if you go to school in Los Angeles or wherever they were, except for in Germany, which of course they have it, it was dubbed over in German. And the name of the show in Germany was not Saved by the Bell. It was called Zach.
Oh, well, there's a great internet show called something like Zach Morris is a Dirtbag. And it just goes through every episode and explains... I mean, he truly was awful. The plots are so centered on him and his desires and his lies he's telling his friends constantly. Bayside, by the way, was originally in Indiana when it was Good Morning, Mrs. Bliss.
Oh, right.
And Haley Mills is the teacher.
Haley Mills.
And then Bayside became a California school because if you've got Zach Morris, you might as well be a California school. Did you know, by the way?
What?
And then we're going to get into
we're going to get into
the nitty gritty.
Please.
Did you know Mark Paul Gosselaar, a minority actor?
What?
His mother is Asian American and possibly an immigrant. Yes.
Wait.
Mark Paul Gosselaar,
is the mother
the avatar of white California boy. Yes.
Is the mother full Asian? Am I allowed to ask these questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on,
Really?
let me look it up because
Well,
it is real, my friend.
I mean, you can get this, when you have your children, it's the great wonders
Mhm.
of the mixing up of the genes that you're gonna have somebody like looks more like a dad or more like a mom. So I guess that would stand to reason
His
that
Indonesian mother, born in Bali, Indonesia, was a flight attendant for KLM Royal Dutch Airlines, and his father is Dutch.
yes, that would
So,
make sense. That would make sense. There's the connection for you. Phoebe Cates, part Filipino.
really?
Yeah, just the
Interesting.
good part. Okay. Very
Okay,
Kathy,
now that we've covered the important
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, really. Thanks. Listeners are like, thank goodness I tuned in today for the
Yeah.
special episode. What's going on with you?
Is stuff going on with me? I'm just going up and back to New York twice this week because I will be on the Fox Broadcast Network
Exciting.
on election night, but we did a couple things this weekend to get ready for that, and on Saturday there was dress rehearsals and things you need to know about, so I went up to New York, did that and the big weekend show on Fox, had a nice dinner out with Guy Benson, and then back on the Amtrak. So, by the way, I had Amtrak food, not the cafe car, but the fancy
A
Acela
Acela
food.
First Class is good. It's good.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me just say,
Mhm.
I was as far from a normie voter in that moment as one could possibly be when I was eating my coq au vin
Oh my
on
gosh.
the Acela.
Yeah.
I don't know how I lucked into this seat, but it worked out great for me. The food was very good.
Yeah.
I didn't know
No,
that.
I was able at some point, I don't know how I ended up in this position, but it must have been through either an upgrade, a free upgrade, or something happened, and I had this, and I was really quite surprised. Plus cocktails, Mary Catherine.
Mhm.
Plus and also when you get out of, the train, the Amtrak attendees around you in first class, they have truncheons,
Oh,
and they just beat back the other passengers like in, like, I don't know, is it in Japan? I don't know how they
that's
do it. In the
true.
subway, they gotta push
That's
people
how
over the
that works.
subway. Yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
so that was a nice experience. Since I have to go up and back twice this week, I might as well get a lucky
Might as well get yes,
trip one of
yes.
those times.
Love
And now I'm back home, but headed back up tomorrow. So big week.
this is what we do.
And, it ain't exactly the salt mines.
Yeah,
It is a
that's
it's a
right.
good gig. I
Yeah,
feel lucky to do it. And at the end of these things, particularly this year, you do come to the point where everyone looks at all the data. The data shows a very close election, and everyone goes, "Well, guess it could go either way."
yeah, you hate to it sounds like a cop out, but I'm telling you, I've
Oh,
called
man.
I've played the prediction game since, I don't know, when I was at the Weekly Standard, every 4 years,
Yeah.
and I tend to be a pessimist, so I always guess the wrong I predicted Kerry, I think, that
Okay.
was and you look back, that was a slam dunk. This may very well also be, and we just don't think about it at the moment, you
Well, and
know?
the beauty of our system, the Electoral College is our friend, is that you can have sort of a slam dunk victory despite the margins being small in a
Yeah,
handful of states, but that can cascade very quickly depending on who has momentum. I mean, the polling looks crazy tight with a slight data advantage maybe to Donald Trump.
for
I was
swing states, but also the national vote is a
yeah.
weird number from New York Times Siena
No, I
to
was
predict that
looking
close.
well, and we can get into
Yeah,
the nitty-gritty of polls a bit, but as I'm sure that many of our listeners are political junkies know, polling is based on a lot of people making guesses about what the composition of the electorate will be, right?
mhm, right,
And so that complicates what the conclusions of those polls are. And so a poll came out on Saturday from Ann Selzer in Iowa, who
mhm,
is very well respected, is
yeah,
somebody who was the canary in the coal mine poll on Trump support several times over, has been closer than others have been. Iowa hasn't been polled a lot during this election year because it's not considered close because Trump has really
yeah,
swung that from the Obama era Iowa to
yeah,
a much redder Iowa. Ann Selzer polled it, and she got a 47-44 for Harris result. And a lot of people are like, "Ah, what does this mean?" And yes, so there are two possibilities. One, that Ann Selzer is picking up on something real that and if Iowa is swinging this hard or independents or older women, which is one demographic she mentioned, are swinging this hard to the Democrats,
right.
then Trump will run into many other problems in many other states. The other possibility is that it's like not a thing she's picking up on and that it was
Right.
just a weird poll.
An outlier. That generated a lot of reaction. It came out last night, I think. And then obviously for those on the left, those who support Kamala Harris, this was very exciting news. And they said, this is it. This is the tipping point. This is the moment we've been waiting for to show that abortion does matter. It's driving
Right.
people to the polls that after, what is it, a 6-week ban, I think, in Iowa, this is what's galvanizing them. So people are like, well, the Dobbs decision was a long time ago. How come suddenly now? Well, it didn't really take an effect. Well, Iowa didn't decide on this, and this is how we got to where we are now. And all these women are coming out. Maybe,
Right.
maybe.
Maybe.
On the other hand, you're telling me that, Iowa, which had been showing Donald Trump by double digits for a very long time, suddenly now they decided to speak out, the women, and say, you
It
know
would
what? I'm no longer afraid to say I'm going to support Kamala Harris.
it
I
would
don't
be a
buy that.
very large swing
Huge.
if it's real. Even if it was less than that, it would still
Right.
constitute a very large swing. It's not
Right.
out of the question. And certainly if that's the case there, it would mean trouble for him other places. So
Right.
your mileage may vary on what you think about that. Nate Cohn at the New York Times, whose set of polls, which has been ongoing in a different way than Seltzer's,
Yeah.
one-off has been, he noted that white Republicans are 16 points less likely to take the poll than
Yeah.
white Democrats. So that is another data point that suggests, okay, in the past, polls have underpolled Trump supporters, whether
Right.
that's because they're shy or they don't have trust in polls or they don't feel like talking to
Yeah.
pollsters,
Yeah.
whatever it is. They think they've corrected for that, and some think they've overcorrected for
Mhm.
that. But this nugget from Cohn suggests that there might be some possibility that is at play as well.
Yeah, that they have undercorrected is what you're saying.
Right.
So that is a thing. I mean, at the end of the day, when we look back on the election, the question is, how did all these pollsters handle the non-response bias? People who don't answer their polls
Right.
and trying to weigh them. Are they overweighing them or are they underweighting them? We don't know. But there's a few things that we do know, which is there are now more registered Republicans and Democrats in a number of these states and a number of these races. The early voting is showing them having an advantage. We don't know if that means this is in addition to all the Republicans who will then decide to vote on election day, or are these other Republicans who would have voted tomorrow? They've
Right.
taken the lesson to heart and they're staying home, and tomorrow will be a quieter day. One interesting indicator I thought was listening to Democrats sounding, on the one hand, very confident that they can win in every swing state, but at the same time saying it's going to really depend on getting that vote out tomorrow. That was a Republican line.
Right.
That wasn't necessarily the Democrats thing is to vote early, and then you don't have to leave your home ever again,
Yeah, it's
and the Republicans were the other way. We got to get everybody out vote. And that's how the Republicans lost Ossoff and the other senator who's, I'm forgetting his name now, Raphael Warnock in
Yep.
Georgia, because Donald Trump had downplayed early voting.
To put it mildly.
Right, to put it lightly, but he's learned his lesson ever since Mary Catherine.
Oh, well, he's learned, I guess, that one, I guess he has learned pretty
Yeah,
well. He does
yeah,
not
yeah.
talk about that anymore. Someone convinced him that he might,
Yeah.
want early votes. I should note that the candidates on their final day, Trump's final day schedule, Raleigh, North Carolina, Reading, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
Okay,
So that's a schedule that seems to
that's pretty
suggest
solid.
he's reaching a little bit into what I would consider more likely her territory with
Right.
Michigan, 2 in Pennsylvania, 1 in North Carolina. People have been wondering why he's in North Carolina so much if they feel good about it. I've talked to some people on the ground in North Carolina who felt very good about early vote, but there are people who have moved to North Carolina who are demographically more left because they came from states where they
Yeah.
didn't like COVID crackdowns, and they moved to North Carolina, and they might be unaffiliated voters, and we don't know exactly how they're going to break,
Right.
but they feel good about where they are. At one point, a couple days ago, Black vote in early voting was lagging 2020, but I think they caught up right at the
Yeah.
end on that particular stat. Harris's final day. Let's see what she's worried about. Scranton, Pennsylvania, Allentown, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
If Trump wins Pennsylvania, right, and they say that it's a slow state, it's going to be a while till we get those results, much to everybody else's frustration. But if it becomes clear early on that he wins Pennsylvania, it'll be very hard, I think, for Harris to make up for that by running the tables elsewhere You
She
said
has
yeah.
fewer paths than he
Yeah.
has.
So
Yeah.
it really does, I think, come down to that. I mean, if Trump can pick up some of these other states, that's just if he wins Pennsylvania, everything else is essentially gravy. You know.
Well, and I think one of the concerns for people who would like Trump to win would be, okay, is there a ground game? Because Kamala Harris and the Democrats are very good
Yeah.
at getting unenthusiastic people to vote,
Get out to the
right?
polls. Yeah.
Republicans have been less good at that. Republicans are gunning for populations that are not
Mhm.
likely to vote. Men are less likely to vote than women.
Yeah.
Young men are less likely to vote than older men.
Right.
So if you're looking for Gen Z men
Right.
to get the vote out, please imagine asking a 23-year-old young man
Yeah.
to turn in his registration on time and get to the polls at whatever place
Right.
early or on the day of. So it's like if you put that next to a 23-year-old woman, like, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
want to shop in a bunch of gender stereotypes. I'm just saying
Women, they tend to have their act together, is what you're saying.
voter
More.
behavior in the past has suggested that
Yeah. There you go.
this is a tough
Right.
ask. Now, I think that the Trump campaign has been very energetic about doing podcasts, being on Twitch. One of the funny stories this week that I saw, that it's always interesting to me what comes through for Steve, because he's definitely
Sure.
not in the same news
No.
circles as we are. And one of the things that came through this week was that Kamala had a space within Fortnite, the video game,
Yes.
and that it was very embarrassing.
Oh, did she not know where she
So
was going? Did she get
no,
hit by that electrical storm? Not that I've ever played the game, but no, no, no. I just watch other people. I just,
no. So
kids a long time ago.
it's called Freedom Town within Fortnite, and there's no weapons allowed.
Oh, come on
And you
now.
also can't talk to other players. And your quest inside Freedom Town is to gather several Harris Walls posters and take them to a Harris Walls rally.
That's the saddest thing I've ever
Well,
heard.
so here's the thing about targeting young men as
Yeah.
well, is that, look,
Mhm.
I think it's a good idea to try to be
Mhm.
in Fortnite, right? You're going
Mhm.
to encounter younger male
Sure.
voters, younger
Mhm.
voters in
Mhm.
general. But if you're targeting young male voters, you're targeting a demographic that's really happy to goof on you.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that's what's
They can have
been
a field
getting
day.
that's what's been coming, going around the
Right.
chat groups, is the
Right.
goofing.
Right.
So,
The video game thing is weird because on the one hand, you have her, Kamala, doing the Fortnite thing, and then you had Tim Walz playing Madden with AOC, and making some reference to a pick six that wasn't. I don't know what's going on there.
run a
Yeah.
mean pick
Pick
six, I
six,
believe
yeah.
was the
There have to be better ways to spend your time in ginning up that vote. I just don't. You're right, but it is hard because it's the bro vote.
yeah.
It's interesting if it's there. He spent 3 hours with Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn, but does that at the end of the day get people to either vote already early or
Right.
show up tomorrow, weather notwithstanding. So
Another interesting point on the young voter outreach through video games and such is that they both have a presence on Twitch to some degree. Trump started his Twitch channel much earlier. He streams his rallies. He sends out notifications that his
mhm.
rallies are streaming. He gets tens of thousands of people, sometimes more, watching each rally. Hers is less popular. It's got only tens of thousands of followers, and I think she does less content. But I think that that's a signal that they do have some kind of plan for getting these voters, but they are hard voters to get,
Yeah,
is
that's
the
right.
issue.
That's right. And with the time that they had left, I don't know. I'm curious, Mary Catherine, what you thought about how they spent their last week, the final week of campaigning, Trump
Well,
versus
so
Kamala.
I guess the big story of the weekend, aside from the poll, we started with the nerdy stuff. We should have started with the crowd pleaser. The big story of the weekend was that Kamala Harris diverted, I believe, from Michigan to New York City
Mhm.
on Saturday night to do Saturday Night Live. And she did a little mirror sketch with Maya Rudolph playing Kamala Harris. So the two of them were talking to each other.
Yeah.
We can play a little clip from it.
Okay.
I wish I could talk to someone who's been in my shoes, a black South Asian woman running for president, preferably from the Bay Area. Oh, sister. It is nice.
So I thought it was cute, but it was cute because Maya Rudolph was pulling off cute.
Yes, and I thought it was definitely spontaneous, spur in the moment, and she's really good at ad-libbing.
Yeah,
So,
that was it.
yeah. So, do we really think this thing was not planned far in advance, that it was sort of a, "Hey, last minute, make a quick stop in here, and let's worry about some FCC violation later"? It's true.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the FCC violation part of it does lend itself to the idea that they brought her in real quick and then they were like, let's just deal with the fallout if we need to.
Which they did.
Now, I think the FCC thing is a silly rule from a time when we had 3 networks and like
Yeah, the equal time rule.
equal time. So that basically any broadcast
Yeah.
network has to give equal time to the candidates. So they gave her 2 minutes. The FCC and NBC then just conceded, yeah, that violates that. So they're going to have to give Trump some time. So I guess let's play a little bit of Trump, who got to speak to Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
Hello to our great sports fans, and I hope you're having a fantastic time. We're 2 days away from the most important election in the history of our country. We've got to save our country, and it needs saving. It's in very bad shape. The worst economic numbers in generations were just announced 2 days ago. We're losing jobs. We're losing everything, including viability.
So he's just straight to camera doing a low-key ad.
I would say that definitely felt like last second versus Kamala. His hat, he looked tired. Obviously, who isn't? You're running a race. This is towards the end now. This is it. And he had, just a very well-rounded sort of general message about getting out to vote and everything is going to change. That's fine. But at the same time, he had a hat, his complexion, of course, is completely off.
Yeah, his hat was sort of like up a little bit. Yeah,
it was. Well, I couldn't see his right eye hardly.
Yeah.
It's like kind of, so it makes it look like it's, you only see part of it and what's happening there versus if he didn't have the hat at all, maybe he would have looked more presidential. So I don't think that helped. There seems to be some confusion.
It's kind of a freebie, right? It's like,
there seems to be some confusion of when that aired because I was under the impression that happened during Sunday Night Football in the middle of the Jacksonville Eagles game, which
would be a good demo for him.
Very, particularly for, both states, but other people were saying that they had seen it during a NASCAR race. So I'm not sure what's happening there. And, either way, you're right. It was a freebie, a lot of eyeballs. I think a lot more people obviously watch football than they do Saturday Night Live.
Right. Unobjectionable, but also doesn't go viral or do anything interesting.
Right.
Yeah, I would have showed up in my McDonald's outfit.
He's still wearing it, plus the vest, plus the reflector vest. I did barring Kamala Harris, the guest host, John Mulaney, is very good.
Very good.
And again, I don't like Jim Gaffigan and myself, fellow Hoyas, as you know.
Oh, is Mulaney a Hoya?
I'm pretty sure. You'll have to.
Okay.
We'll check that out. But I believe he is. And there are several good skits, including Harvey Epstein running for
that was
like
funny.
a city council is very good. But then there was also, Mary Katharine, the other skit involving Tim Kaine, the senator from Virginia.
The senator from Virginia. Let me just say that the skit itself, very funny.
Yeah,
and
very funny, yeah.
Mulaney is somebody who is willing to take shots at both sides. And
Yeah,
I don't know
he is.
who wrote this skit, but it worked well. And the premise was this, and it's a very long skit, and it takes a little run up to the joke. So I'm not sure if we can really encapsulate it in one clip.
Yeah.
But the premise was, name this person. It's a game show, and they just show you a picture of a person. You name that person,
Right.
and they said this is election edition. So Melania is playing a stereotypical good liberal contestant.
Yeah.
And they showed Doug Emhoff. He's like, oh, that's my man, Doug Emhoff. I know him exactly. This is the most important election of our lives. And he's saving us in this battle for democracy, etc. Then it's Special Prosecutor Jack Smith. He's like, that's a hero who doesn't wear a cape.
Right. Very funny.
So he knows exactly who he is. And the third question is, can you name this man? And out from backstage comes Senator Tim Kaine. And Senator Tim Kaine says,
What's my name?
No.
I just told you 90 seconds ago.
Tim Nolan.
but by the way, I know very well who Tim Kaine is. And when
Yeah,
they put
obviously.
his picture up next to Tim Walz, even I was surprised
Right.
how alike they looked.
They also went out of their way to get the same outfit on, you know?
Yes.
Now, here's what's funny about that, because obviously, even if you're not from the Virginia area, you may or may not know who he is. There's two funny things about that, which is one, as he points out, he was the vice presidential nominee for the Democrats when that he was
When
part
y'all
of
were
Hillary
saving
Clinton's
democracy
ticket.
last time. Yeah.
Yes, as he points out, and of course people forget that. And the other funny thing is when the host says, "Oh, it's Tim Scott," there were people in the audience in Saturday Night Live who started clapping because they actually weren't
They
sure.
thought it was him.
And they
Yeah.
just thought, okay, it's Tim Scott. And they're not realizing they're talking about the senator from Florida. So, but that is also much like with Kamala's cameo. The question is, does Tim Kaine's opponent get equal time as well for a politician? That would be Hung Kao.
That would be Hung Kao. Hung Kao, by the way, out with a pretty fire statement on it. He capitalized on this in a pretty smart way. Many of my supporters are saying I should sue NBC for giving free airtime to my opponent, Tim Kaine, right before the election. I disagree. I was barnstorming 12 towns and cities across Virginia yesterday, talking about how we're going to secure our border and lower prices, while Tim was being a human punchline in New York City. I want to thank NBC and Tim Kaine for making the contrast so clear about the stakes on Tuesday.
What a nice guy. My heart goes out to him because I've seen those numbers. It's not great, but you know what? Just keep fighting, man.
Yeah.
Keep fighting. He'd make a great Secretary of Defense. So.
Man, he's
Chairman of the
he's
Joint
good.
Chiefs.
I did think that was a clever way to turn that one. But
He can't be chairman. He's not.
I also must give credit to Kaine for making fun of himself. And I must give credit to SNL for making fun of liberals. And there's a part in this right after where he said, the host says, in 2020, you listed all of these names of Black Americans hurt by police violence. And, for such and such amount of money, can you name one of, and the guy gets all excited and the host finishes, one of them that's not George Floyd.
No, it's great because again, it's a skit that it actually, makes fun of the sanctimony and the virtue signaling.
Yeah.
And that's what it all is.
I appreciate them going after themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought it was well done. But, does any of this change anything? It is just, we shall see, I guess.
What do you think it's going to come down to, Mary Katharine? Do you have a state in your head or no?
I mean, the easy answer is just Pennsylvania. And it worries me because
I have it here in all caps, all eyes on PA.
It worries me because they take a long time to count.
Yeah.
I will note while we're sitting here, because I was just reading this and I appreciate the work very much of the Cook Political Report folks like Dave Wasserman, who just really knows the details. And he lists some counties worth watching. So I'll list off just a couple of those for you guys. But he also has this series of questions. Will it be a turnout surge of Trump bro Gen Z men, a post-Dobbs backlash of working class pro-choice women, a decline in Black turnout and support for Democrats, a late ebb in Latino support for Trump, especially concentrated among Puerto Rican voters? That's a reference to the garbage controversy. And there was a little bit of polling that suggested some Puerto Rican voters did have an issue with that. Although on the other side, there was a Politico magazine piece today about how Puerto Rican and Dominican support in Pennsylvania really had increased in large amounts for Trump, that the Trump campaign had made a serious play for these areas. Reading, Pennsylvania is a majority Latino town, and that Kamala Harris had not been to that town since 2023 before she was the nominee. So I think that's interesting. And basically the Politico take was the gains are probably too big to have been wiped out by this joke. So that's interesting.
I mean, and again, it's if you're a Trump supporter, it's infuriating, obviously, because Trump didn't make the joke.
Yeah,
in everybody's mind, they think this about you, and Trump said this. He didn't say this. It's just you bring in a comedian, you don't vet the material, and then you get in trouble.
Well, and this is one of those things. His campaign is by nature sort of a free for all, right? There's always a lot of strange people around.
Freewheeling.
And arguably one of the things that attracts people is that he's got this rogues gallery of sort of unconventional figures around him, and particularly the RFKs and the Tulsi Gabbards of the world, right? But it's weird what catches fire, right? Like sometimes something like that story will
Yeah.
get a lot of attention. And that's partly on the media because, of course, the Biden garbage comment didn't get nearly as much attention. Or there's like the squirrel story from New York City that got so much
Yep.
attention, I think because it hits on something people are concerned about, which is
Right.
like, why does your government have the authority to and the time and the resources to spend a
Yeah.
5-hour raid coming
That's
after a
right.
pet squirrel in New York City? This is the story of Peanut the squirrel for anybody who is not familiar. He was an internet star, an Instagram pet who had lots of followers, and apparently some busybody called in his dad to the New York department that deals with such things, and both a pet raccoon and a pet squirrel who had been rescued and rehabilitated were killed by the state.
Yeah, they're trying to do this as a thing. They're trying to help, take care of wild animals, and of course the state's like, that's our job, not that we're really going to do it. So
No,
we're
we're
just
going
going
to
to
kill
euthanize
them.
them. We're just going to kill them. And other people are like, oh, the folks on the right are making such a big deal. It's so stupid. It's one squirrel. Suddenly they don't care about animals. That's the first thing. Suddenly they don't care about animals. But the second thing is, it's not about the one squirrel. It's about the fact that the government, as sad as it is, it's about the government spending all this time, energy, and resources to go into your home to
Right.
do this. And if they're doing it for that, what else?
Well, and it captures a dynamic that is part of the immigration issue,
Yeah.
which is in these major cities, governments spend a lot of time nitpicking the law abiding
Right.
and leaving criminals alone.
Yeah.
And that makes people very angry. And the
That's it.
contrast of, say, huge numbers of illegal immigrants,
Right.
even those who have not committed crimes once they get here, living on taxpayers' money in
Yeah.
hotels throughout the
Every-
city, and then there's other ones that, of course, do commit crimes and they're
Yeah.
let go immediately. The contrast of that to the guy who's rehabilitating a cute squirrel and having someone come after him in his apartment. I mean, a judge had a warrant for this.
Yeah.
It's wild. Anyway, so I think it taps into something. Then the question is, though, is either one of these stories just online or is it a real story? Right? I can
Right.
never tell because I'm pretty online.
Right.
Um,
And how do people respond to that, in other ways?
But much
We
like
don't know.
Trump, I totally lost my train,
I-
and now I'm going to get back on it.
Okay.
So I'm going to mention just a couple
Yes.
East Coast counties
Okay.
for you guys to keep an eye on. Georgia is obviously a big swing state. Baldwin County, Georgia. This is coming from Dave Wasserman, who I appreciate very much. Metro Atlanta makes up the majority of Georgia's vote, but he will be watching at smaller and mid-sized towns in Middle and South Georgia, where the Black share of the population and vote has been declining in some counties. So Baldwin County, 41% of the residents are Black, down slightly from 43 in 2000.
Uh-huh.
It says in 2020, it voted for Biden 1.3 points, down from Hillary's 1.7 point margin. If Trump becomes the first Republican to carry it since 2004, it would be an ominous sign. So that is
Okay.
Baldwin County, Georgia. Fayette County, Georgia. This is a great little place featuring Peachtree City, Georgia. It is paved with golf carts, the whole area. And people live in this little idyllic town and ride around on their golf carts everywhere they need to go. Peachtree City remains heavily white, but Fayette County has been gaining Black residents at a dizzying clip. Both parts of the county and Atlanta's southern suburbs have trended blue as white college graduates who live in the county have moved away from the GOP and the racial makeup here becomes more diverse. 2012, it voted for Romney by 31 points, but it voted for Trump by 19 in 2016 and just 7 in 2020. Harris likely needs to come close to winning the county to offset setbacks elsewhere. So a small margin in
Yeah.
Fayette County, Georgia.
Oof.
In North Carolina, 2 places to look, Cabarrus County and Nash County. These are like collar counties they're the exurbs, basically, of Charlotte and of like the Triangle area. And again, they're becoming more diverse. They're becoming less white. They're becoming less GOP. And if the margins go down in those areas, that could be big for her.
Okay.
But
do you have a final gut check?
I'm looking for a Pennsylvania county so that I can tell you guys one of those as well.
Okay.
Here's a good one. Bucks County, Pennsylvania. This is
That's a
where
big
he
one.
was at the McDonald's.
Yeah.
Okay. He was at the McDonald's. Clinton carried Bucks by 0.8 points in 2016, and Biden carried it by 4.4 points in 2020. But if there's any part of the suburbs where non-endorsements by unions could cost Harris its Bucks, they Republicans took the voter registration edge there, which I noted that story when it happened and thought that seemed like a pretty
Interesting.
big deal.
Yep.
If Trump carries Bucks for the first time in his 3 runs, it suggests that Harris will likely be unable to match Biden's showing among white working class voters. So Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Anyway, just a couple
Okay.
to look at.
There we go. And throw in Wayne County in Michigan just for good measure.
Oh, there you go.
There you
Let's
go.
have that one too. No, I was studying the maps in North Carolina as Kamala
You've looked
Harris
at the
says.
maps.
I
You've looked at
studied
them.
the
Yeah,
maps.
yeah. Thank you.
And
How
again,
reassuring.
people feeling pretty good on the ground.
Yeah.
I do have a friend. I have many friends in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. I have some friends in Peachtree City, Georgia. They are all. I have many friends all around North Carolina. They are all desperate for the texting to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I hit the report junk every day and it doesn't work because it turns out there is an infinite number of phone numbers they can use.
They
to
can just
tap in.
keep using them.
That's it. Okay.
Okay, so do we want to do final predictions?
Oof, man. Okay, you go first then if you want to.
I mean, we don't have
Oh
to.
man, I can't. Oh,
You
I
can't, you-
Oh my gosh, this is too hard. Henry Olsen. I'd like to cite Henry Olsen. However, Washington Post and AEI. He thinks Trump will pull it out. Like any
Yeah.
of the stuff that's happening. Trump did not have a great last week, obviously.
Yeah,
Kinda
let's play
lousy.
one crappy clip from
Yeah,
Trump this
let's
week
hear it.
where by the way, he should be talking about the worst jobs
Of
report
course. Yeah.
in
Yeah, he
all
could.
the years I've been watching news, and yet
Yeah,
here
3
he
years.
is.
Our country the day that I left. I shouldn't have left. I mean, honestly, because we did so well. We had such a great. So now, I mean, every polling booth has hundreds of lawyers standing there. It's all about the lawyers. Everybody's standing at the lawyers. Nobody should have that.
Not the closing argument you're looking
No.
for.
No, I mean, so honestly, But Olson still thinks that at the end, when you look at the numbers and demographic shifts and registered voters, Republicans versus Democrat, whatever happened in the last week, which is not great, might be too little, too late.
I
for him.
think if you look at the data, it favors Trump by a small margin. If you look at all the data.
Yeah. A good friend of ours, I didn't ask him if I could use his name, so I won't, but he's a fairly prominent writer and columnist, said that he has absolutely, the American people can't possibly look back in the last 4 years and think that they want more of it. I mean, he just finds it unfathomable.
I
To
mean,
which
so
I said,
that's another huge question, right?
Yeah.
Is that has she been able to sell a change narrative?
right,
They both weirdly aren't changed because he's an incumbent too to some
Right.
degree, but
right.
she's
It's very
saying
unusual. It
she's
is.
saying, oh, in the SNL clip, she says we want out of the chaos. And it's like, girl, you're in charge of the
Yes,
chaos.
as we speak. She just
So-
means his very presence has been chaotic. Okay,
Yeah. So did people buy it? We will find out soon.
we'll find out. I have 2 really quick self-clarifications, because and then we'll wrap it up. The first one is this: during our candy tasting episode, we were talking about Fifth Avenue, the candy bar,
Mhm.
and I said, "Oh, when was the last time somebody ate Fifth Avenue on Fifth Avenue?" Well, what I didn't know is Fifth Avenue is not named after Fifth Avenue in New York City.
Hmm.
It is once again, we were just talking about it on the show, Fifth Avenue in Reading, Pennsylvania.
Oh, look at that.
Yes, it's where it was invented at the Luden's factory, the cough drop factory. They invented Fifth Avenue. And the second thing is, listener Kate Mattis says, my mother-in-law did not, in fact, put Fannie Farmer chocolates in the stockings. It was Russell Stover.
Oh, Russell Stover's
It's
a family
same
favorite
thing.
in my family too.
They're both old-ish, okay? They're both old.
They do have that vibe. There was a Russell Stover factory on the way from my home to my grandmother's
Wow.
home, and we would sometimes stop there and get free samples.
Really? Yes, right next to the Brax candy factory. Okay.
And-
Yes.
It's good
Go ahead.
stuff. Good
Yep,
stuff.
Good stuff. Okay. That wraps up this episode of Getting Hammered. Remember, you can subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play, and YouTube. You can follow me on Twitter at Victorino Mattis.
I should say also that I think the Senate map is just too good for
Oh.
Republicans, for
Yeah.
Democrats to retain power in all
They're taking it.
likelihood.
I'm betting that.
Yeah, West Virginia and Montana are the most likely takes. The most vulnerable place for Republicans is Texas, and I don't
Crazy.
think that that's going to happen for Democrats. The House is going to be much more difficult, partly because Democrats have more money than God to throw on those
do.
House races, and a lot of people might be voting to hedge a Trump win and give Democrats some control.
Yeah.
So I would say that if Republicans keep it, it would be a very, very narrow margin.
Yeah, and in the Senate, really quickly, Larry Hogan is paying the price for this. He's a much-loved former governor of Maryland and Republican, and he's down against Alsobrooks because I think they think that if the Republicans, they don't want them to take the Senate or they're doing whatever, so he's taking the brunt of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a long shot, but he is a beloved governor, so you thought
Yeah.
maybe. Anyway, well, we'll know more soon. Thank you for being with us on this special edition of Getting Hammered. I'm at MK Hammer on Twitter, at MK Hammer Time on Instagram. You can see me on Fox Broadcast during tonight's shenanigans. Watch Shannon Bream and Guy Benson and myself and Juan Williams. It's gonna be a good crew. Thank you for getting hammered responsibly. This has been a Nebulous Media podcast.